on the basis that variety is the spice of life. We've got a very varied gathering as ever. We've got healthcare, solar power, genomics, aquaculture, software development, all strands of innovation and bright thinking are represented on this stage. Very, very different people, very different backgrounds, very different fields, but united by a brightness and I hope an openness as well, an ability to talk and a willingness to share their experiences. On the far end, Roy Schoenberg, CEO of American Well, healthcare business. To his right, Mike Gering, the president and the CEO of Global Solar Energy. The company name speaks for itself. Then Bill Spencer in the shirt, the CEO of Hawaii Oceanic Technology, an aquaculture company. Tim Johnson, the CEO, TJ of High Throughput Genomics. And to my left, Mark Turrell, CEO of Imaginatik. Syllables right there, Imaginatik? Okay, and the accent sounds to me British. So that's a great plus, it seems to me. Let's do this as before, quick fire, right down the line. Tell us a bit about your company and what you want to do and why we should care about it. Roy, first of all.
Well, thank you very much for inviting us to be here. We kind of had a mix-up. We thought this was a healthcare conference. It ended up being about the healthcare of the planet. But we do come from a healthcare company, and pretty much in a nutshell, starting off from the one catchphrase that we were introduced with during dinner, American Well is at least attempting to bring healthcare services online. And that may sound a little bit naive to everybody because everybody knows there's a lot of healthcare online. Everybody knows WebMD and some of the other products, Mayo Clinic and others. But if you think about it for a second, essentially all of these different consumer portals out there allow consumers to interact with information. When you think of healthcare services, as a consumer, you think of yourself interacting with a physician, with a healthcare professional. That, regretfully, doesn't exist today. You still don't have the ability to tap and interact with a physician through online means. So we are literally introducing what, at least at this point, is the only platform that, from a consumer standpoint, allows a consumer to, from the middle of their living room, say, I need to have a conversation with an OBGYN or with a dermatologist, essentially engage the system by either using the web or using the phone, and literally within about 20 or 30 seconds be in front of a real live provider. Now, from a value proposition standpoint, really from the consumer standpoint, it is a very radical change in the level of convenience that they can have to interact with the healthcare system. From a provider standpoint, the brokerage system that is under the hood of this kind of service really brings them, what they tell us is freedom. At last, they can essentially use their professional expertise in order to deliver care services. This is not a philanthropic system. They're getting paid to do this. Literally as much or as little as they would like.
Let me stop you there. Explain this a little bit more. You're in your room in your house, and you go online through a video camera to a physician who will be in a bank of physicians in a call center, in effect, or what? How does it work?
Well, physicians are notorious for not agreeing to sit in a call center.
Well, I was thinking that, but go on.
So really the innovation piece about this system is its capability to broker supply and demand. The brokering engine allows physicians, wherever they are, to decide, whenever they choose, to advise the system, hey, I'm here for the next half an hour. They can do this by telling the system over the web, or literally using their phone to say, I'm going to be here, this phone number, for the next 30 minutes. What we do is we then allow consumers, essentially members of health plans, to engage the system, and we broker the connection between the consumers who have a medical issue with the right type of provider that can answer their needs. So we're no longer forcing anybody to schedule appointments. We're no longer forcing them to get to a care point. They can go right onto that system and within 30 seconds.
So you have a group of doctors who are available to the system. at times they choose and to be arranged and whatever?
It's actually a very large group of doctors because it's a popular system. It is offered into the market by the large national health plans that allow their membership, millions of members, to interact with their existing provider networks, which is tens of thousands of physicians. And what we do is we broker the connection between them.
Who's making the money there, and how do you make money? How does the finance work?
Well, it wouldn't fly if this wouldn't be paid for.
Sure.
And the financial underpinning is really centered on the health plans, the insurers. For them, the value proposition is really very straightforward. Maybe the right way to describe it is the longer you can keep patients at home from a health plan standpoint, the better, because everywhere else they show up is going to cost more money.
Sure. They're very inconvenient patients, aren't they?
Well, I need to be politically correct here, but the reality is that, yes, the longer you can keep patients at home, the happier the health plan is. And they're actually paying for the transaction.
Okay, good. Mike.
Global Solar Energy was founded on the concept that they should deliver a product that realized what had been promised for years. Ever since solar energy has been conceptualized and known about, there have been exaggerated claims about what was going to happen, and all of us have heard since the 1980s that solar energy was going to be on the grid and was going to replace standard energy, and it's never been realized. Global Solar Energy uses a thin film technology whose efficiency is the highest of the thin films, whose manufacturing technique is the lowest cost, and but I might say the most difficult to employ. We have managed to get into production, and we're the only thin film of our technology, copper, indium, gallium diselenide, which is in production today, and with the highest efficiency, I might add, and that's in the world. There are a couple of others of our technology on glass. Our flexible substrate allows us to use a lot of different applications. Half the people in the world don't have light. If you went into your house and flipped a switch and you didn't have light, that disturbs you. If you never had light, you wouldn't know what to do. If you also didn't have water, you would suggest that maybe you'd move back 100 years in the quality of life.
So your system uses different materials from other systems, and that makes it better, cheaper?
We use different material than what's popular that you see today, which is crystal silicon. And crystal silicon has reached its just about its highest efficiency, which means the ability to convert photons into electrons, and its lowest cost. Right now, in order to reduce their cost, they're trying to reduce the thickness of crystal silicon from 150 microns to somewhere around 100 microns. 100 microns is smaller than the kerf of the saw that cuts through it, so there's more waste when they try to reduce their cost. Our cost, by definition, is about half the cost of crystal silicon. And the flexible nature of what we make means that when we can furnish that to third world countries in a box with a battery, with a lamp, or in water purification, so that the flexible nature of it can be used and not destroyed. You can walk on ours, you can drive across a car across it. Also, we found in third world countries that when normal solar panels are put out, what happens is the people wake up in the morning and they've been stolen. You can literally remove ours, roll it up, sleep on it if that's what you wish to do, and then put it out when the sun's up again. So our goal is obviously to make a business. Number one, you asked the question about making money. That's essential also. But we believe that our applications that we've had to date indicate that we're going to be well received across a lot of different spectrums for a lot of different uses.
Am I right in thinking that this whole technology, there ain't going to be some smart, magical idea? It is a matter of continuous improvement, and then we get there?
Continuous improvement in efficiency,
yeah,
and continuous improvement in cost reduction. You are not going to have acceptance of solar until the cost gets down and it's competitive. I noticed somebody speaking earlier about the cost of coal in China. You are not going to have people use solar generally until such time as it's competitive with what their alternatives are.
And how far from that are we? I mean, what's the comparison?
We have a we're not close yet. We're not close yet without the subsidies. But we have a program in Global Solar called 2012, in which our goal, working together with inverter companies and glass companies, to put installed in the field at $2 a watt, which is less than what you can get from coal generating grid supplies today.
So the upfront cost to an individual is higher, or would be higher, will be higher, but once you got it, it's there.
It's higher today.
Right,
and,
but you will get to that situation where it's
my
lower.
belief that we will be there by 2012.
How certain are you? Are you going to put your shirt on? How certain are you of that, or is it just a hope?
I didn't understand.
So how certain are you that you will get to that point, or is it simply a hope?
You know, one of the things that we've been very careful about is exaggerated claims. It just irks me when I've watched other companies do that. I'm just telling you what we're working towards and what we're trying to do.
Okay.
It's dependent on having very, very thin glass and our thick, flexible substrate and the inverter cost, the balance of systems cost, to getting down to what it needs to get down to. There's several companies. We're working together on it, doing a great deal of research in order to get the cost down. All of us have the same goal.
But you're making money now.
Yes, we are.
Bill, tell me what you're up to.
Well, Stephen, we're trying to address a critical global crisis. Seafood is being depleted more rapidly than any other natural resource in the world. Scientists have known this for the last 50 years, but humanity still behaves like primitive hunter-gatherers when it comes to seafood harvesting. In another 20 or 30 years, 50% of the world's population will not be able to get the seafood protein that it needs to survive. So we're trying to address this problem with a next-generation solution, which is domesticating seafood production with a technology that allows you to farm seafood in the open ocean.
How is it different from, I don't know, those salmon farms in Chile or the salmon farms in Europe or whatever? I mean,
a huge difference.
Go on.
Most aquaculture today is done in inland estuaries, bays, rivers, where there just isn't enough water, enough clean water to flush and keep that water clean.
Sure.
So it's created a lot of problems in the aquaculture industry. Aquaculture is a $60 billion global industry dominated by Asia, China in particular. And the United States imports almost 85% of the seafood we consume. Half of that is aquaculture product.
You're implying, or I took you to be saying, that your aquaculture will be far out from shore.
That's right.
How are you going to operate that? How do you operate it?
Well, that's sort of our secret sauce. Our technology takes advantage of the fact that you can have 3 dimensions to grow something in the ocean, unlike land-based farming where you only got 2 dimensions. So we can build
You mean deeper? You mean deeper?
Well, that's another aspect. By being in very deep water, you have a tremendous amount of clean water that continually flushes and cleans our what we call an aquasphere, which is our technology. The other advantage of being in the deep water is we can use ocean thermal energy conversion as a power source to keep our aquaspheres on station, much like a modern-day oil drilling platform. We use telemetry, a GPS, all the latest technology for monitoring water quality, watching the fish grow and making sure they're healthy. And the deep ocean environment keeps everything clean.
I've still not got it. So are we talking about a great big net cage far out in the ocean?
Exactly, a great big cage.
How big?
62 meters in diameter, 82,000 cubic meters in capacity. We can produce in one aquasphere as much as 2,000 tons of seafood, depending on the species.
Two questions. When you say seafood, do you mean fish and shellfish? Well, not shellfish, lobsters or whatever. Or do you mean something a bit more amorphous and, I don't know what you call it?
The highest level of the troposphere is in the ocean is tuna or marine finfish. And as you probably know, bluefin tuna is virtually fished out. The other species of tuna are close behind. In Hawaiian waters, we're almost 80% fished out of our tuna. So we're targeting, our aquasphere can be used for any ocean-based seafood, but we're going to demonstrate our technology with tuna because that's something that's a critical need. Japan, for example, consumes over 400,000 tons of sashimi-grade ahi, as we call it in Hawaii, a year, compared to the US, which is about 40,000 tons. So there's a tremendous, insatiable demand.
And question two, if I can remember what I was going to say, if you do something far from land, one, it's far from markets, and two, it's far from where people live. How do you get around that? I mean, you think of gas rigs, and it's quite an expensive business. How do you keep the people there who look after the fish?
Well, our design in Hawaii will only be 3 miles offshore.
Right.
Every country in the world has what's called an exclusive economic zone that the UN established, a 200-mile. So there are efficiencies in scale by able to have large farms. You can have a tender ship with the appropriate number of maintenance staff. In our case in Hawaii, we're only 3 miles out, so we're close to port and can get our product from aquasphere to dinner table in 48 hours. And that's awfully fresh.
And yeah, one thing, I mean, just describe that route then. What's the route of that tuna to
Well,
my plate?
Typically, you package it, fillet it, chill it, and put it on a cargo plane.
Okay. Go on, sorry.
Otherwise, the way it's done now is it's harvested in many places. Asia, what's typical in the United States, for example, treated with carbon monoxide to preserve the hemoglobin and keep it looking fresh, frozen, and then shipped.
Okay. TJ, what are you up to?
Stephen, high throughput genomics, or HTG, which we go by, is a life science tool company. We operate in a slice of our healthcare system. I think the problems facing our healthcare system are well understood. Question is what are we going to do about it? Our little slice of that solution focuses in 3 different areas. First, better research. What can we do to substantially innovate the workflows that researchers are working within today to allow them to work faster, more efficiently, with greater speed and precision? An example of that being in the gene expression area where we operate, researchers with the current technologies are required to spend upfront time preparing their samples, extracting the RNA from their cells. Our proposition would be, what if we could completely eliminate that step of the workflow and provide the data for the same cost and time that it requires you to just prepare the cells today? So we're talking about innovating workflows for researchers to allow them to do things that they don't perceive they can do today.
I don't understand what you mean, but I mean, I know what the research is, but I don't understand how you speed up that process so scientists know better what my genetic makeup is, because that's what we're talking about, isn't it?
Well, our area is really understanding gene activity so that we can understand the pathways and mechanisms that are causing diseases. So it's all about eliminating or drastically reducing the work steps that require them to get to that information today. It's a matter of how do we get to the information faster at less cost, and how do we get to the information that's most relevant? There's really 2 areas when you think about it today. One is looking at vast amounts of information. Microarrays do that for us today, looking at thousands and thousands of data points. Or we can look at single gene information and one mechanism. We're really talking about a new category in the middle. where we believe the relevance will be in what's going to be relevant for patient care. Looking at more than one gene, but probably less than thousands. And we've kind of coined that as a multiplex mini array format for researchers.
There's lots of implications of this. One is that medicine will get much more targeted and therefore more expensive because you're making it in smaller batches. Am I right?
The premise, if you assume the current assumptions stand, that would be true. But if we can find ways, tools, workflows that substantially reduce the time and effort to bring new drugs, new therapeutics through, there's no reason for the same or less cost that we can't do many, many more. That understanding of workflow has been worked through in many industries, and it has to be worked through within the pharma industry and within the healthcare industry. So we have to take a different premise, which is we can get more for less if we do it in an innovative, completely different workflow way.
And the other issue, which is a big, big issue, and that is how much knowledge insurance companies should have about what's going on in my body, my propensity to whatever I might have a propensity to.
That area is not an area where we plan to operate, although I've talked to a lot of people who do. Obviously, it's going to require a lot of debate on the value of the knowledge and what it can do for my preventative or assist me in my care to solve the problem that I face versus what others may be able to do with that information that could be discriminatory. I think there's going to have to be a lot of debate with a lot of smart people to think that through.
Politicians even?
More debate, the merrier.
Okay. Mark, tell me what Imaginatik is.
Imaginatik. So, actually, it was interesting. I was sort of debating how to answer this question. I could have said that Imaginatik is the world's largest importer of fake penguins.
Go on.
Which wouldn't have been true, but it would have at least got a couple of laughs.
Yeah, okay.
In fact, what we do is we have a software company that's looking into how do you tap into the collective genius of individuals, groups of people, collectively the world to solve problems. It's interesting you just mentioned that there needs to be a lot of debate. Well, we could sit around a table, arrange in 3 months' time to meet up, collect ideas on Post-it notes, stick them in a spreadsheet. It turns out that most ways that human beings today are communicating, sharing ideas, working on problems is hopelessly, it's crap, it's a technical term.
Yeah.
We're operating in
Only
ways...
in Britain, though. No.
It's crap, and it's a bad word everywhere. But pretty much, I mean, I was at the World Economic Forum in Davos, and it's one of those conferences that you should almost kill to get there. And you're sitting with, don't, by the way, you're sitting there with 2,500 of the world's best, brightest leaders. These are the people where it's pay-to-play kind of, it's great. And people are working out world hunger, sustainability, high-throughput genomics. Everybody's having these great discussions. And yet these large sort of CEOs of these corporations, they're representing 20,000 brains, minds of their direct employees, maybe 100,000 suppliers and partners, and you're sitting there with one person having a chat. The fact that there's another table over there having a chat that could be very much building on the stuff that you're doing. Right now, so most of the ways that human beings communicate and we try to collaborate and work together, it's just basically hopelessly sub-optimized.
Right.
So I came up with a way of developing a human laser beam.
Go on.
How do you basically focus and concentrate human brains and minds on solving problems? The human laser beam. So if it's your case, for example, and you're saying, well, okay, we need to have a way of connecting people, doctors, regulators, and everything else. Well, if you could just concentrate that energy, focus those people on a particular topic for a relatively short space of time. What's very interesting is when you start to begin to involve larger numbers of people, so not 6 people or 10 people, but 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 people, you end up that even if none of those individuals are geniuses, even though there are some of us sitting here at this table and in this audience, even if none of the individuals participating are geniuses, you end up with a world of volume and abundance, and the output looks like genius. So we invented the human laser beam.
So how do you, I mean, it's a great phrase, but what does it mean? And how can I use it? I mean, it sounds to me like a way of harnessing the wisdom of crowds, even very you're in the media business, BBC? Yeah.
So we work with another media company on, and I apologize for this in advance, how do you come up with a replacement format for reality TV shows?
Yeah.
In the past, what you would do
Do we want to, but go on.
You don't have a choice. It's going to happen anyway.
Yeah. Anyway,
It's
go on.
It's an emergent system. Emergent systems, by the way, 85% good, 15% bad. I'm not responsible for either. But what you have then is that this particular organization needed to find new formats. Historically, what you do is you'd invite a small number of people in the room to come up with new formats. What this organization did is gave 800 employees the opportunity to come up with their ideas. They had 3 days to do it. They could submit them on text, video, audio, make their own little pilots and everything else. And within those 5 days, they came up with a significant number of ideas, some of which have already been funded and will be on to air within the next 12 months.
Is it a kind of, and it sounds a great idea, is it a kind of electronic wiki suggestion box?
Well, so it's, if you look at it, so it's a collaborative software. And in fact, if you're part of the strategic news service, you would be using it to ideate around the firefighters things. That's Imaginatik software. But if you look at it, you sort of need to have a front end. You need to collect, and there's a whole bunch of very important human dynamics. You need to have a back end. And a back end means you need to evaluate, prioritize, protect intellectual property, search and match concepts, develop some social networks. You need a back end. You then need enterprise scale. We work with very complex organizations. So something as simplistic as a wiki or a blog really does not scale to an organization, let's say, of sort of Pfizer's complexity. You then need to understand deep human factors. And this is not easy stuff. People have been trying to do collaborative software for the last 15 years, and by and large, it doesn't work. So you'd be interested just to get your...
Go on.
You had a question?
Yeah.
I'll ask you a question.
No, why does yours work?
Well, actually, I'll tell you, I'll ask the question and I will show you why. So let us say that people had the ability to submit ideas with the name on it and or anonymously. What percentage of ideas do you reckon would come in anonymously?
80.
80. Why is that?
I don't know, because I think maybe it's 80 in Britain because we're all shy, and 20 in America.
Yeah, but you're on stage talking. You don't look shy.
I'm very shy, but go on.
You completely.
You tell me.
You're completely wrong.
You tell me.
The actual average. So this is looking at 400,000 ideas over the last 10. We've been doing this for 10 years. 100-odd clients. It doesn't really depend on culture. The actual number is 4%. Just 4% of content comes in anonymously. So you were out by a factor of 20. But this is critically important. It turns out to get collaboration systems working, all of the secrets are counterintuitive. Every single one. And not only that, but there are like at least 20 mistakes that you could make. Every single one of those mistakes, when a company would implement it, is fatal. So right now, what we've done is by spending the last 10 years working on this, we've pretty much nailed all of those things. That's fabulous.
Britain's most confident man. Anyway, our time is coming to an end. I thank you all. And what I really thank you for is just being so bright and enthusiastic. And the glass is very, very full, and that's a privilege to talk to you all. So thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.